Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Crystal. Today I have a video that I want to speak to you all. I think it's a very amazing show created by Shonda Land. The name of the show is Queen Charlotte, and the episode, I just want to specifically speak about this particular episode because I feel like there's some takeaways and some gems that is very much connected to women and womanhood. So the name of this episode is Gardens in the Bloom, episode 5. I'm going to speak about the takeaways that I found in the show that I felt like are very important to women that we just need to be aware of, and things that we can learn. And you know, this episode to me was just very special. Definitely have to speak about this show. It was so awesome. So the first takeaway that I noticed of this show is the 2:44 mark. This is Violet. She is in a bed alone and she is basically looking for intimacy. She's trailing her hands over her body. And it, to me, what it signified or what it showed is that, you know, she's looking for intimacy, she's looking for comfort, and she feels like empty, she feels alone. And I think with a lot of women, we may feel very alone because we don't have an intimate partner and we don't have a connection, we don't have a romantic union. So I just thought that that scene was very telling of what she was missing or what she missed. At the 3:39 mark, this is Lady Danbury. The scene between, it's like a scene between night and day, her experiences, her sexual intimacy between her husband, where she was forced to bend to his will, ignoring her own desires. And in that scene, it's where she expresses, this is a new her now. Now that he's gone, she's going to have to rediscover who she is. And at times for women, when we get into relationships and we lose ourselves, but this case, she was sold off at the age of 3 by her family, I believe she said in the show. And it relates to what a lot of women go through secretly, where when we get into relationships, we lose ourselves, we morph into the man that we're dating, and all his likes, his wants, his needs become ours. So when that relationship is done, and much like Lady Danbury, with her marriage, with her husband dying, she has to rediscover her. And she decided she didn't want to get remarried because, to be honest, you would have to cater to your partner, and it makes sense why she chose to be single, because you have to, like, in that moment, you have to understand that she doesn't have an identity. Much like many women, when we get into relationships and we lose ourselves, we don't have an identity. And to connect back to self, you must do the work to connect back to yourself and ask yourself the hard questions. What do I like? What are my needs? What do I want? You know, what makes me happy? What makes me fulfilled? And I see that in this scene, I believe it signifies like a renewal, you know, a rebirth. And again, at 8:35 mark, Lady Danbury and her maid, she's speaking to her and she's basically telling her that she doesn't have an identity of her own. She was molded to his ideals, her late husband's ideals, as I said before. And at the 27th mark, it's Violet and Lady Danbury. And basically, Violet's telling Lady Danbury that she is, you know, gardens in the bloom. It's blooming. And I think that's very metaphorical. I think what she's referring to, what is blooming, is, you know, she wants to be sexually intimate. She wants to feel touched. She wants to feel connected to someone, and she's missing that, you know, that sexual human need. So she, from what I believe, she attends the nude art exhibition to basically fill that void. Another connection, well, not connection, but another part that I found so beautiful of Queen Charlotte, what is the name of this episode again? Took some notes. Gardens in the Bloom, episode 5, I feel was so beautiful, was the 49:10 mark. Agatha is in her older age, and Violet, the scene where they're both of them are talking, mainly Agatha, where she's saying to Agatha, she is saying to Violet that womanhood has become a duty to men, where they basically never get to center themselves and yield to themselves instead of the men. She then goes on to explain to Violet that it is all right to seek the desire of another man. And I think Violet is having some issue with wanting for her garden to be bloomed and the guilt of moving on to another man. I mean, we're definitely not going to do that. We are humans, and we're allowed to do what we choose to do when it comes to intimacy. Okay, at the 1 hour and 30-second mark, Queen Charlotte and Lady Danbury, this part just was so special to me. Queen Charlotte and Lady Danbury revealed to each other that even though many women are in their position, they will at least make this position work for them. And this was around the time where Queen Charlotte was feeling very alone, very down, very sad. We can most definitely say, hey, this has a lot to do with her pregnancy. But in that scene, or several scenes leading up to this one, I felt like she was just very alone and she had nobody to talk to. And when she was talking to Lady Danbury, I believe in this 1 hour and 30-second mark, Lady Danbury's words of encouragement were exactly what she needed to hear. I feel like something she said, it sparked the power within her to go and get her husband, King George, I believe King George the third, from being terrorized by this crazy doctor. I mean, I don't know why back then they would use terror to treat patients. It was so terrible, so terrible. I felt like this scene was just so beautiful to me because this is what Queen Charlotte needed. She needed encouragement. She needed another woman there, because us women, we know how to sympathize and empathize and have compassion so naturally. We are very intuitive. We know another woman does not have to say too much. We can feel out what she's going through and give her the encouragement to steer her in the direction that can bring fulfillment and calm to her. And I believe that is what Lady Danbury offered to Queen Charlotte. And I was like, I had tears in my eyes because I really connected with that scene. Sometimes women, when they're just so alone and sad, they just need another woman there to uplift them. Her brother was there, but that was just not enough. Her brother was there, that's amazing, but it just wasn't enough. Another scene I thought was amazing was Queen Charlotte, the 1 hour, 8-minute, 12-second mark. This scene is where she finally yields to her power and the reality that she lives in, where she practically puts an end to the torture of King George, her husband, and restores his spirit. Okay. And lastly, the 1 hour and 11-minute mark, 50 seconds mark, Lady Danbury takes back her power and intimacy, where she no longer feels disconnected to sex with, when she was having it with her husband. She was just looking up at the wall, looking up at the ceiling, like, is he done yet? Did he, climax yet, or whatever? Is he, is he done? Let's get over and done with. Because she wasn't pleased, of course. She had to bend to his will. The key words of what I can take away from this episode was empowerment, loneliness, vulnerability, intimacy, and friendships. And I believe this was one of my favorite episodes. I love series that's like based in history and in the past and whatnot. I think this was brilliant. This episode was one of my favorite episodes. I feel like a lot of women can relate to this episode if they just look closely and, you know, listen attentively. I feel like there are key gems from this show that relate to women and can help women learn and maybe just like I said, just relate to. So thank you so much for coming to my channel. Like, share, subscribe, take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.